Picture your entire world abruptly collapsing. One of the all-time great athletes, Serena Williams, is powerless to stop her husband from receiving a shocking, life-altering diagnosis. You will be rendered stunned by what transpired next. It's more intense than you could ever imagine. The heartache, the tears, and the emotional toll that followed. It's not just about illness, so you won't want to miss this narrative. Strength, fortitude, and the unvarnished reality of their life are what matter. To find out the startling details, keep reading. On the tennis court, Serena Williams is renowned for her exceptional success and unwavering resolve. Although few people see it, her life is full with difficulties and personal struggles behind the public image. One of the most heartbreaking and painful times in Serena's personal life is what we're going to explore today. Her spouse broke down in tears after receiving the devastating diagnosis. When Serena's husband, Alexis Ohanian, received news that would alter everything, what happened? The entire tale will be revealed in this video, which also includes information and perspectives you might not have previously heard. We'll look at their relationship, their family, and how they overcame such an unthinkable obstacle in the face of this prognosis. From the first indications that something was amiss to the psychological effects of the diagnosis, this trip will give you a fresh understanding of the vulnerability and strength that characterize Serena and Alexis's relationship. As we share the untold side of their story, stay tuned. You will remember this emotional roller coaster for a long time. For Alexis Ohanian and Serena Williams, it all began as an apparently typical day. Serena was concentrating on her training and family life after winning another race. Reddit founder and internet tycoon Alexis had a hectic schedule that he had to manage while juggling his responsibilities as a devoted spouse and father. But things would change in a flash when Alexa received a diagnosis that would ruin her life at a routine checkup. The kind of news that anyone ever wants to hear was given to Alexis at a routine checkup with the doctor. After receiving this diagnosis, he and Serena were devastated and questioned how their lives would ever be the same. Despite his reputation for strength and fortitude, Alexis found himself in a precarious situation where his own health was at risk. This diagnosis wasn't your average sickness. It had the ability to jeopardize not just his own destiny, but also his family's future. The doctors were unambiguous. A critical condition existed that needed to be addressed right now. Alexis was rocked by the news, which came as a ton of bricks. The most startling aspect, though, was that the diagnosis was not expected. They had not expected it, and, as a result of the ambiguity, they were both feeling shocked. Alexis had always been a rock for Serena and their daughter, so the vulnerability he felt in that situation was unlike anything he had ever felt before. Alexis fought to contain his tears as the news hit him. But his tears weren't only triggered by his own health concerns. It was the possibility of what this would entail for his family. On the tennis court, Serena, who was renowned for her unwavering confidence, was now up against a different kind of obstacle. It was a test of their bond, their fortitude, and their capacity to endure even the most trying times together. The startling thing, though, comes next. Alexis struggled to accept the prognosis, while Serena struggled to balance her responsibilities as an athlete, wife, and mother. She had fought innumerable physical confrontations on the court. This, however, was different. Grit and willpower were not enough to get her through this. While Alexis grappled with his diagnosis, Serena, in her own way, was getting ready for the fight. What would happen next, as they both battled the unknown, would put their relationship's basis to the test. Could their love survive the emotional toll that lay ahead? But hold on, things start to get interesting now. Their problems were only getting started. And there was still the most surprising turn to come. When Serena and Alexis were presented with a tough choice by the physicians, how did they react? As we reveal the next phase of this emotional journey, don't stop watching. Following the diagnosis, Serena and Alexis were thrown into a maelstrom of second opinions, medical visits, and emotional upheaval. The pair was overcome with anxiety and confusion as what was supposed to be a routine examination swiftly turned into a medical nightmare. They were given a challenging option by the doctors: an unclear outcome from a less invasive approach or a riskier treatment that might extend Alexis's life. The choice would change their family's course in addition to having an impact on Alexis's health. Normally calm under duress, Serena was caught in an uncommon moment of vulnerability. The thought of losing her husband, the man who had been her pillar of support, her rock, and the father of her child, was nearly unbearable. How could she manage the responsibilities of her family, her job, and now the questionable health of Alexis? The choice was a difficult one for Alexis. His decisions affected not just his own life, but also the lives of everybody around him, and he had always been in charge. However, he now had a disease that made him helpless. What was occurring to his body was beyond his control, and he was uncertain for the first time in his life if he would live to see his daughter grow up or support Serena through her career's highs and lows. The pair discovered that they needed each other more than ever in the middle of everything. The world had seen their flawlessly manicured lives, which contrasted sharply with this. Behind the scenes, they were battling the intricacies of love, fear, and the brutal reality that an unimaginable change was about to occur in their lives. Even though she was devastated, Serena took on a new role that went beyond being a wife, mother, or professional athlete. To Alexis, she must have been everything. She became his caregiver, his emotional support system, and his real-life spouse. Their once unstoppable dynamic was now being put to the test by an uncontrollable, invisible force. However, this is where things become much more heated. The pressure of public scrutiny was a major burden on them as they attempted to make this tough decision. Over the course of her career, Serena had already had her fair share of criticism regarding her choices, body, and performance. But now that everyone was looking, how would she manage the mounting stress in her private life? Is it possible for them to keep their difficulties private? Or would their most personal moments become hotly debated in the public eye? There was pressure, growing. After spending her whole life playing on the largest platforms in the world, Serena now had to contend with something far more intimate: the clock. Every moment she spent with Alexis felt more brittle than ever since she knew time was of the essence. However, things become much more sentimental at this point. Everything they believed to be true about their relationship would be altered by what Alexis did next, which would surprise them both. Keep an eye out, because this is the point at which fate took a surprising turn. How did Serena feel about Alexis's subsequent choice? And how did it affect their marriage and future? You won't believe what follows. Alexis started to struggle with the fact that he had been diagnosed as the couple worked through the potentially challenging decision. He felt the weight of knowing that his life could be drastically cut short, even with the love and support of his family. Building a prosperous profession, a family, and an unwavering public image, he was a guy who had always been in charge of his own fate. However, that control was now eroding, along with his sense of self. Alexis made an unexpected and upsetting decision after hours of heated talks with family, close friends, and doctors. He opted for a more all-encompassing approach to mending rather than the riskier course of therapy. Even while the treatment would have increased his chances of living a longer life, there were serious risks involved, such as long-term adverse effects that may have made it harder for him to support his family. Rather than going the traditional path, Alexis chose to combine lifestyle modifications, alternative therapies, and a more introspective focus on his mental and emotional health. This was an extremely painful choice, Serena. The dread of losing Alexis was too great, but she accepted his decision to take charge of his own health. Although Serena had always been a warrior, she wasn't sure how to stand up to something as unpredictable and out of her control as a medical diagnosis. It rocked her to her very core. The true surprise, though, was when Alexis turned to Serena and made an unexpected request. He asked her not to tell anyone about their personal difficulty just yet. Despite the fact that they had always been transparent about their lives in public, Alexis was afraid that the burden of worse judgment or public compassion may make their trip much more difficult. He wished to keep their private conflict confidential. This was the point at which Serena's determination was put to the test. Being open and genuine, she had cultivated her profession and public persona by constantly sharing her successes and setbacks with the world. This, however, was different. Public appearances and tennis matches were not the only aspects of this. Her spouse, her family, and the future they had created together were at the center of this. Is it possible for her to comply with Alexis's request and ignore this aspect of their lives? Serena found herself torn between her private life and her public persona as the pressure to act normally increased. It wasn't about fame or attention, and she didn't want to hide something so intimate from her supporters who had stood by her side through thick and thin. It was about them, about their love and their struggle against something greater than anything they had ever experienced. There were times during their fight when Serena and Alexis both experienced intense emotion. People had always thought of Serena as the tough, resolute woman who could handle anything. She was, however, as exposed as anybody else behind closed doors, caught in the pain of witnessing her partner's suffering. Serena would sometimes hold Alexis's hand through the night as they both attempted to come to terms with the uncertainty of their future. Alexis would cry in her arms on certain days, feeling powerless to change his diagnosis. The emotional depth of their relationship, however, really came to the fore at this point, in ways that went beyond words. Serena and Alexis managed to support one another in spite of the suffering, the heartbreak, and the anxiety about the future. Serena's strength extended beyond her capacity to endure physical discomfort while playing tennis. She had to be there for Alexis when he needed her the most, even when she thought she had nothing left to offer. And despite her physical weakness, Serena found emotional support from Alexis, who assured her that they would overcome this obstacle together. At this point, the narrative takes a surprising turn. Serena encountered a problem she never anticipated when it appeared that the couple's situation could not become much more difficult. In the subsequent phase of their adventure, Serena is compelled to make a choice that would impact not only her relationship with Alexis, but also her professional life and public perception. Could she manage the demands of her job and her personal life at the same time, or will all of the hard work she had put in come crashing down? The wildest part is about to happen, and you won't believe what occurs as Serena is had to face the reality of her own priorities. Watch to see how this emotional roller coaster takes yet another surprising turn. As the weeks went by, Alexis's situation became more and more real. A tornado of emotions was engulfing the duo. Alexis experienced both positive days when he felt better and negative days when the burden of his illness left him feeling vulnerable and worn out. Serena, who was always as a warrior, made an effort to keep her life normal, although everything was different. She was caught between two seemingly unattainable paths once her world changed. Serena had already experienced a great deal of pressure during her career. From her early years as a budding tennis star to her later years as a world-renowned figure, she had consistently managed to ignore the commotion and concentrate on her objectives and the game. This, however, was different. Her husband's health issue was beyond her ability to resolve on her alone. Her chances of winning on a tennis court were slim. It was intimate, honest, and unvarnished. The emotional toll on Serena increased along with the stakes. Realizing that her profession, for which she had made so many sacrifices, could have to take a back seat while she put Alexis's health first, was one of the most difficult things Serena had to face. It was the most difficult choice she had ever had to make. She had dedicated her entire life to this endeavor. How could she abandon it? However, how could she keep touring the world and performing for thousands of fans when her husband was fighting for his life back home? Would she be able to let him fight by himself? Serena's absence from the court was causing her admirers to get more and more alarmed. At the same time, a feeling of anxiety pervaded the media. Questions were now being asked by fans who had followed Serena's every step. Why did she not play? Did something go wrong? As rumors began to circulate, the pressure increased. Serena, who had always been honest with her fans, now had to make a decision. She wished to be open and honest about the private conflict that was taking place behind the scenes. However, she had been requested by Alexis to keep their personal life confidential. Her silence so allowed her supporters to conjecture, which only served to stoke the flames. During the media frenzy, Serena got both supportive and scathing texts. Her commitment to her family was commended by some, while others asked why she wasn't playing. Regardless of what the general public believed, Serena was actually faced with the most challenging decision of her life. She had to stop playing like nothing was wrong. She struggled to keep up the caliber of performance that her audience had grown accustomed to, but the pressures of motherhood and her husband's health issues were too much to bear. In private, Serena soothed, supported, and guided Alex through his therapy options while he slept through many nights. Her desire to support him was strong, but there were times when she felt like she was falling short. Was she ignoring her work? Did she leave her fans behind? Were the people who had stood by her for so long being let down? It was too much guilt. Serena then made a choice that nobody anticipated, just when it appeared that everything was getting out of hand. Given the mounting public expectations and her own internal conflict, she made the decision to take a short but necessary hiatus from tennis. Though difficult, the choice freed her to concentrate entirely on her family and Alexis's well-being. Serena had a gut feeling that this was the right decision. She knew her spouse needed her more than ever, but she couldn't continue to move forward with a broken heart. This is where things start to get quite sentimental. Alexis made a choice that would alter everything once more, just as Serena decided to retire from the sport that had shaped her life. Alexis's own heart was full of love and gratitude. Serena was moved to tears when he did something for her that made her realize how powerful they were. To demonstrate his gratitude for her sacrifice and to demonstrate that their love was indeed unshakable, Alexis did something you won't believe. But that's not all. There was more to Serena's story. Something started to change as she spent more time with Alexis, not only in their partnership but also in Serena. she started to reconsider what life was really all about. Would she have a fresh purpose and a more lucid outlook when she returned to the court? Or would she be affected by the wounds from this experience, which would influence how she handled everything from parenting to tennis? And this is where its real strength lies. Strength, selflessness, and the transformational potential of love are all themes in Serena's story. As we reveal the emotional turn that fundamentally altered her job path, her relationship with Alexis, and her perspective on life, don't stop watching. I assure you that you will not want to miss this following chapter. Following her heartbreaking decision to temporarily leave her career, Serena found herself in unfamiliar territory. Her accomplishments on the court had always been her defining feature. Competition-related excitement and her followers' admiration. The thing that used to give her life purpose, however, now seemed insignificant compared to the internal conflict she and Alexis were going through. As they worked through the highs and lows of Alexis's treatment, Serena started to notice that the life she had always led was changing during those quiet times with him. This went beyond simply taking a vacation from tennis. It was about regaining her identity away from the limelight. Serena was able to relax for the first time in years without the demands of being a world-renowned figure. Public appearances, reporters, and cameras were all absent. Only her, Alexis, and their family were going through difficult times, grieving and recovering. However, a significant event was taking place at this moment. Even if sickness was a constant threat, there were times when the gloom was illuminated. Alexis, who had been doing everything in his power to battle his diagnosis, began to show symptoms of a surprising comeback. Even the doctors were surprised by his emotional and physical strength. Alexis's will to battle and his wife's support proved to be the difference, even if the prognosis had been dire. This journey's most impactful moments occurred one evening shortly after Alexis completed a course of treatment. There was a gleam in his eyes despite his weariness. Sitting beside him, as she had done so many times before, Serena became aware of a shift. With an almost imperceptible smile despite his agony, Alexis turned to face her and whispered something that would stay with Serena for the rest of her life. "No matter what, I will fight to the end for you and us. I'm not sure how long I have left. I'll see to it that you return to the field to play once I'm well. I will always be the one cheering the loudest." It was the first calm Serena had experienced in weeks. The man battling his health at that time wasn't Alexis. The man she had married was him. No matter what, the man was always determined to overcome. She felt optimism from his words. Serena felt deep down that Alexis's bravery and their unbreakable relationship could see them through the war, even though it was far from over. This is where things take a surprising turn, though. Serena believed she had found equilibrium and was prepared to resume her work with a fresh sense of direction when a new obstacle appeared. It had nothing to do with Alexis's health, but rather with something far more private and widely known. A wave of anticipation accompanied the rumors that Serena would be returning to tennis. Her return was eagerly anticipated by sponsors, fans, and media outlets. However, a catch existed. Serena's desire to return was no longer certain. She had dedicated years of her life to tennis. It had brought her attention, wealth, and celebrity. But there had been a great deal of sacrifice involved as well. Serena now started to wonder if she could really balance everything because Alexis's health was still uncertain and her family life was taking precedence. With the future of her family still uncertain, could she return to a sport that required her all? Was she at a position where she had to put her family before her fame? The subsequent events would serve as the impetus for a crucial change in Serena's life. When the media kept asking her questions, Serena decided it was time to speak out about her experience, not only about her comeback to tennis. When she opened her heart to the world, she felt as though a burden had been removed. Serena addressed her followers, supporters, and the globe at large in an open statement that she shared on social media. More than I ever imagined, I've experienced a lot. Although my interest has always been tennis, my current passion is my family. I am going to spend some time concentrating on my priorities, my own health, my spouse, and my kids. But know that I still have the same passion for the game as before, regardless of what happens next. It's not farewell. This is merely a fresh chapter. Serena's statement sparked an intense response. The uncertainties surrounding her tennis career saddened some fans, but many more praised her for her fortitude, honesty, and commitment to her family. Her status as a champion of love, resiliency, and self-care was solidified in that moment, in addition to her status as a champion on the court. However, just when it appeared that Serena's career and personal life were about to take a new turn, an even more startling event occurred. Alexis made a daring choice that would fundamentally alter their lives in a rare moment of strength and clarity. As his health continued to fluctuate, Alexis made the decision to take a significant step that no one had anticipated. This went beyond decisions concerning life and medical care. It has to do with one's own legacy.